Hey, what's up guys? It's Oakley and I'm going to be doing an online multiplayer battle. Let's go ahead and pause this real quick. And the reason I'm going to pause this is it's going to be an interesting battle. My opponent, you can see deploying in the distance, is going to be the Nervii, and I am going to be Colchis. You can see the unit builds right here in front of you, what we've both chosen. However, at the very start of this deployment, I obviously did not have access to that, and so when I'm looking at my opponent's army, there's clearly something missing in his build. And that will become rather self-evident as we start to get into this. But before we go ahead and move forward, let's go ahead and overview my forces. So my guys right here, I decided to deploy in a rather compact formation that's going to be screened by the Peltas units in the front. I think that's always a good move because they can actually soak up a pretty good cavalry charge. They're meant for skirmishing. Put them there. Sometimes you'll see me spread them out on the wings, but definitely keep them up in the front. And then maybe some in the reserve if you have extra to help stabilize the end game fights. And then behind that I have two Hippeus Lancers. They're going to be sort of helping to probe and prod the beginning of my opponent's army. And then in the front of this I have three of these Axemen, and these Axemen are obviously going to be the meat of my army. These guys are very, very good. I love them. They have really good stats, especially for chopping into enemy armies. Much like my opponent, a barbarian army that doesn't have quite that much armor and health, I can definitely chew into that with Axemen. And then I have some Cartly Axemen in the rear, and in between that I have Hillmen. So these are going to be cheap Farda units, and what I'm keeping them here for is tactical variability. If I need to send them out to absorb, javelin throws or use them for what other sort of purpose I might have. Colchian nobles in the back, and then noble blood cav here. So I'm staying pretty compact. Usually I start wide, but in this case I didn't. And so what we're going to be doing is starting to deploy, and my opponent, you can see this is all I have to look at. It looks like he has a rather small build, but I do know that the Nervi do have the ability to have hidden units, so I'm a little bit wary about what's going on. And here he's moving forward with Germanic Scout Riders, and this is obviously a build, if I put this on slow motion, obviously a build that my opponent has tried a lot online, and I could tell that mostly because of the way he reacted in game. He was all very matter of fact for this game. I would say, hey, are you ready? He wouldn't respond. I would say, all right, good luck, have fun. He wouldn't respond. So this guy is he is 100% business, and he's all about using this build to beat people. Yeah, you'll see a little bit later how this turns out. So anyways, I guess let's keep this on slow motion. So from his perspective, why does he have a good build? Well, you'll see because he has these hidden units that are going to start deploying up here. Let's go ahead and put this on pause. You have to realize that as this army is starting to pop into field of view and materialize, I have to react to this instantaneously. Let's take a look at what this is like from my opponent's perspective. What his build does is he throws out three of these Germanic Scout Riders to try and bait your cavalry into some sort of engagement. He tries and tempt your army into chasing these guys off. As your guys get close, then he hits you with all of these Gallic Hunters, focus fires and tries to take you out, and then he has supporting Guerrilla Swordsmen to rush and sort of catch you, and then he has another backup force right here. Oathsworn, who are going to be hard to take out, and then Celtic Warriors, who are not that hard to take out, but this is a pretty sizable chunk of units. So my build, I have to do a split decision. At this point, here's what I'm thinking. I all of a sudden realize that, okay, this entire army has materialized, and I can do a couple of things. The first thing would be to retreat, stop, pull back all my forces, and retreat. And I'm doing all this real time in my head. We're on pause here so we can analyze it. You have to consider the downsides of that. If I were to stop here and pull back, that's basically kind of allowing my opponent's build to work. You can see how his guys are already starting to get volleys off against me. He's already shot volleys at me. The second I turn these Peltas around, their backs are going to be exposed. I'm going to lose that entire force. As I pull back, he's just going to go ahead and chase with these Germanic Scout Riders, pick off a couple of my Peltas, and that means basically he's been able to surprise me. I retreat, reform, and then we re-engage, and all I got for retreating is going to be, losing probably this unit and this unit. So then when we come and re-engage and he'll probably form up his army, in the typical order, I'll be down. So that's the brilliance of my opponent's strategy. So what I decide to do is not go ahead and retreat, and I decide to do something that probably he doesn't expect, which is to kind of go all out attack on this, but all out in such a way that it's very measured, and you'll see me do this. So here's how I'm going to do this. I'm thinking about this. I'm going to continue to push forward with my Peltas, and let's see this. Look at this. The first move that I make, my army's still moving where it should be, is to move up my Hippeus Lancers. I realize there is no spears right here, and the best way to do this is to just storm up with my Hippeus Lancers, get into the action, and thrash these guys before reinforcements can come in line. My Peltas are going to stand here. I had them just stand here to be able to ward off his cavalry, and I have more guys coming back here. You can see how I'm starting to redeploy these guys to cover these Peltas. My other Peltas are going to be, they got some early volleys pulled back, and what they're doing is they're drawing fire from the archers. See how they're drawing fire from the archers? And now my cavalry is not taking as much damage as they would have with the full volley. And let's take a look at this. You know how I talked about retreating and taking a lot of damage? That's exactly what happened to this force. So had I retreated, you know, I would have lost this many men and this many men without any benefit. But instead, I've decided to use my peltas to cover my cavalry charge. We're still 40 for 40, and now I'm going to be in the thick of this. I left a couple units to ward off his cav, and now I'm coming in with the rest of my forces. I'm bringing some noble blood cav around this flank because I know, you know, in the face of this assault, he's going to want to retreat back to this force, and so that's why I'm going to swing around the flank. So you really got to think about all these conditions and cases in your mind when these types of things are about to happen. And look at this, my opponent is going to be somewhat braced, but still, you know, I'm going to get a decent amount of kills on his guys, charging straight into this force, crushing them, and I want to get as many kills on this blob as possible before I then come in with some of my other Kartli axemen, or just axemen I guess, coming into this fight, sweeping around the sides, and you can see me just thrashing these guerrilla warriors. This one down to 69 and 7, this one at 70. I'm forcing his entire army back. He's in disarray, and now I could be the one with the advantage. And kind of knowing how to deal with these types of ambushes and situations is something you'll get out of just playing the game over and over. But I hope by me explaining to you my thinking and the quick analysis I did in my head of what the conditions would be if I were to do, you know, a retreat or an attack, you got to do those quick calculations. And you can see now his Gallic hunters are going to start to turn about. His fierce swords are going to start to get into the fight. So now I pull out of this engagement after having done, you know, a hefty amount of damage with my, keep in mind these are Hippeus Lancers, lost half of that unit, the other one is healthy, and then I come in with a noble blood cav. These are melee cavalry. These are the guys you want in sustained combat, and that's why I didn't send them up the front. I, you know, got the best out of my charging forces, my shock cav, did as much impact as possible, and then came in from the flank where I don't expect too much return fire from his guys with my noble blood cav, and this is where I can really tie up these forces. The archers are point blank range. I'm going to force them back, and it's going to, you know, at least, even if they're going to fire on me, divert a lot of their attention this way, which allows me to keep pushing up my force here. These units, I move them up into javelin range, and I want to just make sure to take out units like fierce swords, and this is something that you should do as well. See how I know all of his archers are, you know, or most of his archers have their attention diverted? That's why I'm leaving these guys here, not getting them into combat, because I know they have peltas, or they have spears to throw. Don't go ahead and charge them in. Let them get as many spear throws as possible. I know they have heavy armor, so I can take opposing spear throws. I'm just going to let my guys get as much, you know, spear throwing in as possible. I'm going to charge in with Colchian nobles on that flank. My cavalry here is, let's see what their stats are at. They've gotten 38 kills. They're starting to drop, but they're, you know, tying up an entire force right there. And the rest of my guys are sitting pretty in the reserve. I moved up my peltas to soak up some fire, do some fire on some of his own Oathsworn. I tried to pick those guys off. I'm going to countercharge with some of my own Hillmen. Like I told you, these guys are just here to stem an enemy assault, so they're going to hold back his guys. They're not going to do very much, and then I'm going to pull back and be able to get some more shots on him. Equally on this side, you know, I have more of my axemen. I'm using all of my guys here just to get some shots off. I have his Celtic warriors in an odd position. They don't want to charge into hoplites, and so they're forced to kind of stand here and take my volleys. My own peltas are going to be pulling back to do more damage. You can see how he's getting a flank attack on me and a frontal assault. It's a good move on his part, but by having these peltas, look at this. I'm going to move these guys back into this position, turn around, and look at this. This is going to destroy that flank. I did lose my guys finally, and so that's going to allow most of his guys to be freed up, but I was able to stem the tide. And take a look at this. Look exactly how I was able to hold the front. I didn't form a strong straight line and put all my guys there. I have guys in reserve. I'm able to tie up a bunch of his warriors with just one unit of axemen here who I know who can hold out, allowing me to make the most of my javelins. I think using the javelins on all your forces is probably the most overlooked thing that people don't do. Even if it's units like these, you know, just let them get flanking shots. I'm getting way more kills with these guys quicker than if they're engaged in this fight. So let units stand by themselves, let them be fodder, let Hillmen die, they cost nothing, and get all the kills with these guys without getting any, you know, damage done in return. So that's my strategy on this. My nobles are going to hold the flanks over there, and they're also holding over here, and now I'm going to push forward with my remaining Hippeus Lancers, you know, secure this flank, prevent him from doing hammer and anvils, and then thread the gap here with my Hippeus Lancers, hit the back of his guys, and now I'm coming in with my Kartli Axemen reinforcements. I want to push through this flank because I know he has heavy forces on that side. I'm also going to be deploying my Colchian nobles to get into this mix. All his Celtic warriors are starting to break. My own axemen are going to start to break, but that's why I have more guys here, and they're going to be positioned to also get some javelin fire, supporting fire, and then I'm going to turn them back on this front. I've been able to fix, you know, his best units, his best Oathsworn against Colchian nobles, Man, that's exactly how you have to use these guys. Pin them up against units who have excellent defense, and they won't get anywhere. Take a look at how I'm going to position my Axemen. Here you go. Not going to engage in combat just yet. You know, this guy is going to... No, that's Peltas. Peltas is going to get a perfect flanking shot on his Oathsworn. Best way to take care of them is fix them against someone they can't kill, and then hit them in the flank. These other guys are going to try and penetrate, hold, and then push forward. And I had to brace because his Germanic Scout Rider is going to try and come into here. So I'm going to hold and get some counter volleys against his guys. Over here, I was able to get some early strikes on his guys. Kartli Axemen, you know, ward off cavalry. Help out this flank, hopefully take out his general, and then just have some more roving Hippeus Lancers to come and clean this up. My own guys here are getting torn apart, but it's better than moving forward. If I move forward, then I'm going to get, you know, harassed by these guys even closer, and if I move forward, his cavalry could have scooted around through the gap, but I paid dearly. I lost an entire unit just standing there. That's very troublesome for me, so I got my Hippeus Lancers, and I want to break these units. I know if I can get rid of his infantry, no matter how many archers he has left, I can go ahead and come on in with all my remaining infantry. So my point now is just to, you know, keep hammering and anviling all these groups, allow my guys to survive this engagement. And I still have Kartli Axemen coming into the fight. He's going to try and knock me out with this unit coming in through here. And these javelins, let's go ahead and put this on slow motion. My opponent had a really good build. You can see how he's using javelins. He's getting them to the rear of my infantry everywhere he can, and just harassing them. So these are very good units, and my opponent had a very good build. I think I am countering it pretty effectively. I was able to tie them up pretty well and just not allow his overwhelming skirmisher advantage to do that much damage. So he is continuing to pick off my guys. He's now going to be targeting my Colchian nobles, my general. That's very troublesome. I should pull them out at this point. However, I'm microing over on another side. I think I'm going to go ahead and engage them over here, clean up the Celtic warriors, and then push on the archers up there. So let's put this on play. Yeah, you can see me. I'm going to pull them out of the line of fire, but they're just getting absolutely thrashed and massacred by those archers. Man, they just do a lot of damage. So my opponent has a build that puts a sort of a countdown on your forces. You have to clean up his infantry. You can't wait around or you're going to get thrashed by those archers. Or you have to have some sort of cavalry superiority, which I didn't quite have. I could have. But yeah, you need something to tie this down. My build obviously didn't rely on cavalry superiority. If you had, maybe I could have countered that better, but he had a lot of infantry as well that he could have kept in reserve to guard those guys. So he's doing hammer and anvils. However, you know, he's doing it against Kartli Axemen, who are pretty good. My general's in here, or my Hippeus Lancers in here. I popped my general's ability, so my guys are pretty rallied. So I'm not too worried about that falling apart. I'm also breaking apart his Fierce Swords. My general is still alive. I popped that general ability before he died. And I'm starting to stabilize, kill all these fronts, and now it looks like his archers, yep, Gallic Hunters for the most part are going to be out of ammo. A couple of them are still left. And now my opponent is going to start throwing these guys finally into the fight, hoping they could take out my guys, targeting some of my high-level Axemen. And I guess we can watch some of the animations. Definitely very cool. One of his Oathsworns even has like an arrow sticking out the side. So here come, yep, archers coming into the fight. And they may be able to turn the tide a little bit. But look at these heavily armored guys. Look at the type of armor they have, and look at the type of armor my opponent has. I'm going to thrash these guys, especially with, you know, shields. My opponent doesn't have shields. I have axes. Yeah, I don't think I'm going to really lose any man, especially when I get a sandwich on him. So that's going to destroy all of his archers. Over here, his Oathsworn are still alive, but my Colchian nobles are still hanging in there over on this front. You know, it's going to be Hippeus Lancers. There's 14 against Germanic Scout Riders. My own guys got 163 kills. Finally, I'm going to break his dudes. And over here, it's still kind of up in the air. Oathsworn have been going away at the Colchian nobles. You can see how my initial move of holding, you know, pairing up Oathsworn against Colchian nobles allowed me to, you know, keep these guys out of the fight and neutralize them for as long as possible in this battle. Had I matched up Kartli Axemen, I maybe would have lost. Coming back in with my Hippeus Lancers. Just want to make sure those Oathsworn go down and don't bother me in the future. Collapsing on the rest of his guys. He's now getting fire shot. He really thinks he can break my morale. And he just might. He might. You never know. So it's really counting down. But at this point, my opponent is going to see, you know, you look at the flaming abilities on all my guys. Yeah, their morale is being suffered. But now he's going to see his general is going down. And my opponent is, you know, 9, 8, 7. And so this is why I told you before that my opponent was a little bit of a sore loser. He didn't admit defeat. He pulled out, and that's why it was called a draw. Kind of bullshit, if you ask me. He never said good game. He never said anything. He just came in, expected to cheese me with that ambush. I kind of destroyed him, and then he goes ahead and pulls the plug. So I don't really appreciate those kinds of players, but I can honestly appreciate his strategy. It was a good build, a good strategy. I just hope he was able to learn his lesson, and hopefully this, you know, helps tone down a little bit of his. I don't know if you want to call it arrogance, but hopefully this keeps him in check. And, you know, the occasional loss like this, it feels good at least to have inflicted that on him. We can go ahead and look at the stats. His build is as follows. You guys can try and do the same build my opponent did, but if you do it, I think he executed it well. Not quite sure how he could have done too much better, but just if you do this build, just make sure you're polite, guys. Anyways, I hope you enjoy it. I will see you next time. Peace out.